I almost didn't make this video because there simply isn't enough evidence to accuse anyone of anything. I've always said I deal in facts, not speculation. Innocent until proven guilty has to apply to everyone. If I abandon that principle because a case is emotional, then I become the very thing I criticize. I believe in the ideal of our justice system, but I also understand why so many Black Americans question whether justice is always applied equally. Decades of research and our own history have documented racial disparities throughout the criminal justice system. Equal justice under the law has too often been an aspiration instead of reality. That's exactly why I'm not accusing anyone in this case. I'm talking about the optics. Nolan Wells was the only Black boy on a trip with 3 white boys. Nolan didn't come home. Those are the facts. Against the backdrop of this country's history, those facts raise difficult questions. Asking those questions is not the same as accusing someone of murder. My mutual, Suzanne Lambert, who many of you know, made what I think is one of the most important observations about this case. Go follow her and watch her video. She said if the roles were reversed, if it had been 3 Black boys who went on a trip with 1 white boy, and those 3 Black boys came home while the white boy didn't, all hell would have broken loose. She's right. Those 3 Black boys would have been plastered across cable news. Their social media would have been picked apart. Their lives would have been dissected. Commentators would have used the story to reinforce stereotypes about Black crime and Black violence. We can only picture the Fox News headlines. You don't see that happening here, do you? And before anyone twists my words, let me be clear. I'm not saying these 3 boys are guilty. I'm saying America has a long history of reacting differently depending on who's missing and who is left standing. Research has consistently shown that Black boys are more likely to be perceived as older, less innocent, and more threatening than white boys their same age. Black youth are disproportionately criminalized, and Black men and boys are disproportionately victims of violent crimes. Those are documented facts. Acknowledging those realities doesn't make every white person racist. It doesn't make these 3 boys guilty. It means we're honest enough to recognize that race still shapes how many Americans view crime, innocence, and guilt. So I'll leave you with Suzanne Lambert's question. If the headlines had read, 3 Black boys return home, white boy missing, do you honestly believe the media, law enforcement, and the public would have responded the same way? Because your answer to that question may reveal more about America than it does about this case. And that's the read.
I've got some updates for you on the Nolan Wells case. So number 1, the police force in Mississippi has deemed there to be no foul play. Yes, you heard me right. No foul play. Nolan's family have not accepted this, and they've taken on a prominent civil rights lawyer called Ben Crump, and he's investigating the case, and he's already uncovered so much. Remember how Nolan's phone returned to his family when he didn't? Well, it turns out things have been deleted off the phone. Yes, deleted, gone, yella bye-bye from the phone, and apparently facial ID was used. Now, I'm a bit confused. If he's missing, how did they use facial ID? Or did they use facial ID before he went missing? And what did they delete? So the phone is now in the possession of the parents, and the Mississippi police force have asked them to give them the phone. But the family said no. This is the same police force who've already deemed there to be no foul play. Do we really trust the police in Mississippi? Nolan's family is having his body shipped out over 800 miles away to Washington, D.C., where an independent autopsy will be carried out. There are so many inconsistencies in the stories of Nolan's friends, their families. The phone had stuff deleted out of it. Facial ID was used. People's social media was shut down. People got lawyered up. The phone came back, but he didn't. There's too much to this story to believe that it was some kind of freak accident. The beach was crowded. Look, I don't need to keep explaining to you over and over again. I know you guys get it. There is seriously something shady going on. I felt it in the pit of my stomach as soon as I heard this story. And with every single day, we're learning more and more disturbing details that have left us asking more questions. What happened to Nolan Wells on Horn Island?
This is someone's real life. Okay, this is someone's son. This is not a fodder for content. This should not have been Nolan Wells last summer. Nolan Wells was someone's baby. He was 18 years old, set to turn 19 next month, set to go back to playing football at his local community college. He was very well liked. He got along with everybody. He was radiant. He was a leader. And he went out with 3 friends. They went out to an island. His 3 friends returned to the mainland without him. And all 3 of those friends are white. And I know that when I say that, there are white people watching this who are immediately gonna say, well, we don't know what happened. And y'all, this is the difference. If the situations were reversed, if the circumstances were reversed, and it was 3 black boys who took a white boy out, and the 3 black boys came back and the white boy did not, it wouldn't matter that they didn't know what happened. Those 3 black boys would have been in handcuffs. Those 3 black boys would still be in questioning to this day. I can see the Fox News headline now, right? They would have used it as proof. See, we told you black people were dangerous. We told you black people were bad. I've seen no such headline on Fox News about this. Have you? Even though, we know that white men are overwhelmingly responsible for situations of mass violence across the US, and I'm not saying every white guy, right? I'm not saying that. Here's the thing. Acknowledging that black people are in danger in this country, often at the hands of white people, often at the hands of white police officers, acknowledging that reality, because it is a reality, right? It's not a theory. It is evidenced by so much data and history and lived experience. Acknowledging that reality as a white person does not make you inherently dangerous, but refusing to acknowledge it does. We have to be able to recognize the double standard before we can do something about that. And genuinely, because I know there's people with all kinds of belief systems who follow me, I want you to sit with that. What would you think if you saw 3 black boys had taken a white boy out and the white boy didn't return? What would you honestly think? Throughout history, our criminal justice system has never waited to wait and find out what happens when it comes to incarcerating black people or punishing black people for crimes they didn't commit, or even killing black people for crimes that they did not commit. That is just the truth.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Truth Verdicts, where we examine important stories, difficult conversation, and current events with fairness, context, and respect. Before we begin, special credit goes to the original creators and the Stitches video used that inspired this discussion.
Secret Service Sam here, and civil rights attorney Ben Crump is now on the case for Nolan Xavier Wells, and I couldn't be happier about this, as I'm sure everybody else is as well, because he will get to the bottom of this. He will get transparency. We need justice for Nolan. There is not any other option but justice for this young man, because we need to know what happened from the time his friends left him there on that island to the time they found him, RIP. And it's a reminder that choose your friends very wisely, because these kids are obviously not his friends. They've shut down all their social media accounts. We know that they seem to be connected. This is also Mississippi, which can't be trusted at all. Mississippi has a horrendous history of racism. So all the white people out there are like, hey, let's stop making this about race. Again, go look at your history and understand why this is about race. Even if it isn't about race, you have to understand why it's being assumed it's about race. Now, Ben Crump is one of the best civil rights personal injury attorneys in the country. He's handled several high-profile cases like this. He's going to be on the appeal for Carmelo Anthony. And, my whole thing about this is, had this been a young white man and 3 to 4 black friends who had shut down their social media, weren't saying a word, had nothing to say, no RIPs, that our president would be on television right now saying, we gotta find him, every media, no media outlet is covering this. The only people who are covering this is independent journalists like myself across the internet, and I salute all of you out there. I've seen all the videos and support that's coming out for the black community. I think it's very important for people who look like me. This is our time. This is our time to speak up and to not stay silent, and to make sure that the black community knows that they're not alone, that not all white people are like this, right? And here's a message to white people. You don't have to get offended when people say, I don't trust white people. I don't trust white group friends. If it's not you, then sit back down. We're not talking about you. That's the thing you have to know. If you get offended, then you might need to ask yourself, am I the one they're talking about? Because I'm not offended at all when I hear any of that, because I know it's not me they're talking about. So wake up, get involved, say something, or else you're just sitting on the sidelines or on the fence doing nothing. And the black community needs us to come forward, needs us to be transparent and get to the bottom of this, so these type of things don't happen again. You don't leave your friend on an island. I don't care what girl he's talking about. You drag him off that island and you get him home. Because I guarantee you, if this had happened to one of those white boys, everybody and their mother would be talking about it. Okay? So have respect for the family. Say a prayer for the family. I love you guys. Secret Service Sam out, Samson for president of the world.
These motherfuckers left him there to die. Or they killed him and left. And one thing's for sure, they better be fucking terrified, because Ben Crump's legal team is on it. His team is conducting an independent review. Why? Because no one fucking trusts law enforcement. They're urging that anyone on that trip or near Horn Island to freaking step forward. But mostly, they want to know about the physical altercation that happened right before his friends left. They said Nolan wanted to stay behind with another group of friends. Nolan Xavier Wells said yes to a trip on 4th of July to Horn Island in Mississippi. His 18-year-old body was found Monday, July 6th by a park ranger in the water just offshore of Horn Island. The cause of death still unknown. There was an autopsy done, but they said that the toxicology panels can take up to 2 weeks to finalize. I don't care what anyone says, but this is a black teenager hanging out with his white friends, and only the black teenager doesn't return. First off, if I ever go on a trip with you anywhere, you're coming back home with me. We do not leave anyone behind. And you're telling me an 18-year-old boy left his phone on the boat to protect it from water, and he was talking to some girl on the island? All I know is if I'm interested in someone and we're having a great time, I would take a selfie and I would ask for your number. So the phone was still on the boat. This teenager never said, where the fuck is my phone? The phone made it home, but he didn't? Bull fucking shit.
A lot of people in the black community and white community are very pissed at the 3 white teens who left Nolan Wells on that island and feel like that they bear some responsibility, even if it was an accidental drowning. And white people are really struggling with this, and they feel like it's not fair. There's no evidence as of yet to show that they did anything wrong. Let me help y'all out. If Nolan Wells was a white teenage girl who had been drinking, and that island was full of men and teenage boys who had also been drinking, and her 3 teen male friends packed up in the boat and left her alone without a phone, intoxicated on an island full of men and teenage boys, we would be justifiably outraged. That is a careless and reckless thing to do. And if you're old enough to drink and operate a boat, you are old enough to know how to treat a lady, and you're old enough to know not to leave her in such a dangerous situation. But we don't think about Nolan Wells, a black teen boy last seen talking to a girl drinking that day without a phone on an island full of white people in the sun setting, as vulnerable. Excuse me? Has no one been paying attention in history class? If you're old enough to drink and operate a boat, you're old enough to know how to treat a woman, and you're old enough to know how to treat your black friends. And the black community is right to be outraged, because not teaching those boys how to handle that situation, not teaching those boys not to leave that goddamn island and leave their black friend on that island without any communication, last seen talking to a white girl, is stupidity at best. Frankly, it's the type of reckless, careless, blind white supremacy that we all see clearly, those of us that have deconstructed. Why would they see him as vulnerable? They don't see him as a person. You have to see someone before you can see them as a vulnerable person.
For a judge, that Nolan Wells stepmother, really doesn't even know how to lie. You last saw him at 3, and then at 4:30ish, you decide, oh no, our boat's not working, and you leave. So how did he know you were leaving if you didn't see him for the last hour and a half? And clearly he was under assumption he was leaving with you because his phone was still on the boat. And if you know anything about teenagers, I'm fairly certain they would even do some stupid shit to get their phone with them if they knew they were staying behind. So he didn't. You last saw him at 3, your boat needed to go home, and you just left him at 4:30. And instead of getting home and being like, hey, we left somebody behind because we couldn't find them and we were in a rush and we have their phone at 4:30 when you got home, you just didn't give a shit. And then when the mom starts calling you and wondering, your mom's like, yo, what the fuck, and realize you messed up. And so then you quickly retain lawyers, concoct some sort of story to make yourself look innocent, and delete all your social media. They're not fucking innocent of anything.
Today's episode discussed the tragedy death of Nolan Wells, public reactions and broader questions about fairness, race, and the criminal justice system. Our goal is not to accuse anyone without evidence, but to examine the issue thoughtful and respectfully. According to the reports and discussion circulating online, Nolan Wells was just 18 years old. He was preparing to celebrate his 90th birthday and return to play football at the local community college. Friends and family have described him as kind and well-liked, and someone who naturally took on leadership role. Like many young adults, he was looking forward to the future. Then tragedy struck. Nolan went on an outing with 3 friends to Ireland. Those white friends returned to mainland, but Nolan did not. His death have left many unanswered questions and devastated those who loved him. As with any ongoing or recent investigation, it is important to remember the facts should come from verified evidence and official findings. Until investigators complete their work, no one should be declared guilty without proof. The online discussion has expanded beyond the tragic lot itself. Many people are asking whether race affects how similar incidents are preserved by public and handled by authority. Some commentators argue that if the racial identity has been reversed, if 3 black teenagers has returned without a white friend, public suspicion, media coverage, and police response might have been much more immediately and intense. Others caution against making assumptions before all the facts are known, regardless of race. This competitive perspective have fueled passion conversation across social media. This discussion touched on a larger issue that has existed in America for generations. Many civil rights advocates point to historic examples where Black Americans face arrest, prosecution, or even violence based on limited evidence or racial prejudice. At the same time, many believe that every investigation should follow the same standards, regardless of the evidence, interview witness, follow the facts, avoid rushing to judgment. Equal justice means applying the same legal standard to everyone, regardless of their race. That principle protects innocent people while ensuring accountability when wrongdoing is proven. Another point raised is media coverage. Some argue that certain stories receive more national attention than others depending on the people involved. Others believe news organizations make decisions based on available information, public interest, and developing investigation. Whether one agrees or disagrees, many people believe consistent reporting and equal attention to victims are important for maintaining public trust. Every family deserves answer for losing someone they love. Every victim deserves a thorough investigation. Every suspect deserves due process. Justice should never depend on race, popularity, or politics. If America wants equal justice under the law, then equal standard must apply to everyone. That means avoiding assumption while also ensuring every case receives serious attention and a complete investigation. The death of Nolan Wells is a heartbreaking reminder that every life matters and every family deserves truthful answer. As citizens, we can support transparency, accountability, and fairness without rushing to conclude before investigator presents evidence. Again, special thanks and full credit to original creator and the Stitches videos used on this commentary. Do you believe similar cases receive the same treatment regardless of race? Or do you think America still struggles with unequal standards in its justice system? Share your thoughts respectfully in the comment below. If you find this discussion thoughtful and informative, please like, share, and subscribe to Truth Verdict. Your support helps us continue producing balanced documentary that encourage informative discussion rather than division. Thanks for watching. We will see you in the next episode on Truth Verdict. Bye.